On New Year, my wife shut off the door and said, "You're not family anymore, get out." I saw my sister-in-law laughing behind her, handing my seat to my sister-in-law's boyfriend. I just nodded and left. And sent the text I'd been saving for 5 months. Moments later, half the people stood up and walked out. Before I tell you how that single sentence shattered my marriage and flipped an entire family upside down, do me a small favor, show some love to this story by following along and letting your voice be heard in the comments. You have no idea how much that support matters. My name is Ethan Cole. I'm 32 years old, and for most of my life, I've been the quiet one. Not shy. Not weak. Just observant. The kind of guy who notices patterns before people notice pain. The kind of guy who learns early that staying silent keeps the peace, at least on the surface. I grew up believing that if I worked hard, stayed respectful, and didn't rock the boat, things would eventually balance out. That belief followed me into adulthood, straight into my marriage. Lauren, my wife, came from a family that looked perfect from the outside. Big smiles, loud laughter, polished holiday photos that screamed togetherness. When we first started dating, I thought I was lucky. She was confident, charming, and decisive in ways I wasn't. She made plans. I followed. It felt like stability. But what I didn't understand at first was that her family ran on hierarchy, not love. And I was never meant to climb very high. At gatherings, Lauren's opinions carried weight. Her sister Brooke's jokes were always the punchlines everyone laughed at. Their parents decided what mattered and who mattered. I was tolerated. The husband. The plus one who eventually became permanent furniture. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. The little comments. Ethan's just more low-key. He's not really a leader type. Lauren handles the big stuff. They laughed when they said it. So I laughed too. When Brooke's boyfriend Ryan showed up, loud, confident, always talking about his next big move, everyone leaned in. He got the seat next to Lauren's dad. He got the compliments. I got asked to pass the salt. I noticed. I always noticed. But I stayed quiet. Because that's what you do when you want to belong. Over time, that quiet turned into invisibility. Decisions about holidays were made without asking me. Jokes were made at my expense, disguised as humor. And Lauren? She never corrected them. Never defended me. Sometimes she even joined in, rolling her eyes like I was being overly sensitive for noticing. The truth is, I wasn't blind. I was patient. And patience can look a lot like weakness to people who benefit from your silence. 5 months before New Year's Eve, something inside me shifted. It was small. Almost insignificant on the surface. Lauren had volunteered me, without asking, to help Brooke and Ryan move into a new place. I rearranged my work schedule, lifted boxes all day, paid for pizza and supplies. At the end of it, Ryan laughed and said, "Man, it's nice having free labor in the family." Everyone laughed. Lauren laughed the loudest. That night, I didn't argue. I didn't sulk. I went home and sat alone in the dark living room, listening to the refrigerator hum, realizing something important. They didn't respect me. And worse, Lauren didn't either. That's when I started preparing. Not out of anger. Not for revenge. But because I was done being erased. I didn't confront anyone. I didn't threaten to leave. I just started documenting. Conversations. Messages. Offhand remarks that revealed exactly how they talked about me when they thought I wasn't listening. I saved invitations that never came. Screenshots of family group chats where plans were made without me, then sent to me later as an afterthought. And I stopped giving. No more favors. No more money. No more emotional labor disguised as being the easy one. They didn't notice at first. People rarely notice when the person carrying the weight sets it down. Then came New Year's Eve. Lauren insisted we go to her family's place on Pine Hollow Lane in Maple Ridge. She said it was important. A fresh start. I almost laughed at that phrase. The house was already full when we arrived. Music playing. Drinks flowing. Laughter spilling out into the cold night air. I stepped inside behind Lauren, carrying a bottle of wine no one had asked for. That's when she stopped. Right in the doorway. She turned around, one hand still on the doorframe, and looked at me like a manager addressing an inconvenience. "You're not family anymore," she said flatly. "Get out." For a moment, I honestly thought I misheard her. Then I saw Brooke behind her, smiling. Laughing. Holding a place card and setting it down at the table. My place. She slid it toward Ryan. Lauren didn't look back at them. She didn't need to. The decision had already been made. People were watching. Some uncomfortable. Some entertained. No one stopped her. I felt something strange in that moment. Not anger. Not heartbreak. Clarity. I nodded. Just once. I turned around, walked back down the steps, and into the cold night air. I didn't slam the door. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't beg. I got into my car, drove down the street, and parked beneath a darkened streetlight. Then I took out my phone and sent the text I'd been saving for 5 months. I sat there with the engine off, hands resting on the steering wheel, watching the glow from the house at the end of the street. Music still pulsed through the walls. Laughter spilled out every time the door opened. From the outside, nothing had changed. Inside, though, the ground was already cracking. The text I sent didn't go to the whole family. That would have been pointless. Mob mentality protects itself. Instead, I sent it to 8 people. 8 carefully chosen contacts. People who had either confided in me privately over the years or had shown discomfort when things crossed a line. The message was short. I've been quiet for years. Tonight made it clear that silence only protects the wrong people. Before anyone rewrites what just happened, here's the truth. Decide for yourselves. Attached was a single file. 5 minutes long. No commentary. No insults. Just receipts. Audio clips of Lauren mocking me to Brooke when she thought I was asleep. Screenshots of group chats where plans were made to exclude me, followed by fake apologies afterward. A voice note from her mother saying, "Ethan's useful, but he's not really one of us." A clip from last Easter where Brooke joked about me being the charity case husband, and everyone laughed, including Lauren. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't edit for drama. I let the silence between their words do the damage. I put my phone face down and stared at the windshield. 3 minutes passed. Then my phone started vibrating. I didn't pick it up. Through my rearview mirror, I saw movement at the house. The front door swung open harder this time. Brooke stormed out first, heels in hand, face flushed red, not drunk red, angry red. She paced on the porch, phone pressed to her ear, gesturing wildly like she was arguing with someone who refused to back down. Then Ryan followed. He didn't look confused. He looked exposed. Like someone who just realized the joke was on him. Another door opened. Then another. People started leaving. Not all at once. But enough that it was noticeable. Lauren's uncle stepped outside, jacket half on, shaking his head. Her cousin Melissa followed, wiping her eyes. One of the family friends, someone who'd always been polite to me but distant, walked out staring at her phone like it had just told her something she couldn't unsee. That's when my phone rang. Maya. Lauren's cousin. The only one in that family who ever spoke to me like a human being. I answered. "Ethan," she said, not even pretending to be calm. "What did you send them?" "You watched it." There was a pause. I could hear the night air through her phone. Wind. Footsteps. "I watched all of it," she said quietly. "So did half the living room. Lauren's mom is crying. Brooke's yelling. Your wife just tried to say you edited it." "I didn't." "I know. I was there for half of those conversations." I closed my eyes. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I will be." Another pause. "I just left," she said. "I couldn't stay in there. They're scrambling. Trying to figure out who saw what. Who forwarded it. Who's on your side." I almost laughed at that phrasing. "I didn't pick sides," I said. "I just stopped lying." She exhaled slowly. "That's what scares them." We hung up. I drove home. Not the house I shared with Lauren. My place. The small condo I'd bought years before we got married and never sold, because some part of me had always needed a door that only I controlled. I slept that night. Deeply. For the first time in months. I woke up to 37 missed calls. Most from Lauren. Some from her parents. 2 from Brooke. 1 voicemail from Ryan. I listened to none of them. Instead, I made coffee and sat by the window, watching the city wake up, feeling something unfamiliar settle in my chest. Peace. By noon, the messages started changing tone. Lauren's first texts were furious. "How dare you humiliate me? You took things out of context. You always do this, play the victim." Then came the panic. "Ethan, please answer. We need to talk before this gets worse. My parents are asking questions." Then the bargaining. "Let's meet somewhere neutral. We can fix this. You didn't have to do it like this." I finally replied with a single line. "I didn't do anything to you. I stopped covering for you." That was when the story shifted. Lauren tried damage control. She sent messages to the same people I'd contacted, claiming I was unstable, that I'd been secretly recording her, that I was looking for an excuse to leave. That backfired. Because several of those people had their own messages. Their own memories. Their own moments where something felt off. Maya called again later that afternoon. "She just accused you of manipulation," she said. And then Melissa sent screenshots of Brooke trashing her behind her back. It's unraveling fast. I leaned back in my chair. Good. That evening, someone else knocked on my door. I wasn't expecting visitors. It was Lauren's father. He looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically. Just diminished. Like the certainty he carried had cracked. I didn't know, he said after I let him in. I swear to you, Ethan, I didn't know it was like that. I didn't offer him a seat. You were there, I said calmly. You heard it. He swallowed. I heard jokes. I didn't think. That's the problem, I replied. No one thought. You all just laughed. Silence stretched between us. She's furious, he said finally. Not at you. At losing control. That surprised me. He sighed. Your wife is used to being the center. When you left quietly, when you didn't argue, it scared her. I nodded. I'm not coming back, I said. He didn't argue. I figured, he replied. I just wanted you to know, some of us are finally listening. After he left, I blocked Lauren's number. Not out of spite. Out of necessity. Because the truth is, the hardest part wasn't being thrown out. It was realizing how long I'd been standing outside already. And as the night settled in, my phone buzzed with one last message, from an unknown number. You think this makes you powerful, it read. But you just burned every bridge you had. I stared at the screen, then typed back. No. I finally stopped standing on bridges that were already collapsing. And for the first time, I knew this wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of the reckoning. The silence after I blocked Lauren felt louder than any argument we'd ever had. No buzzing phone. No half apologies disguised as accusations. No late night, we need to talk, messages that really meant you need to submit. Just quiet. Real quiet. That's when the aftershocks started. It began subtly. Mutual friends stopped liking Lauren's posts. A few people unfollowed her entirely. Brooke deleted 3 photos from New Year's Eve, the ones where everyone was laughing around the table, pretending nothing was wrong. Ryan changed his relationship status to, "It's complicated." I didn't celebrate any of it. I was too busy processing something else, how easy it had been for them to discard me once they decided I didn't serve their image anymore. That realization hurt more than the door being shut in my face. 3 days after New Year's, my lawyer called. You didn't tell me you were the one covering Lauren's student loans, he said casually. I blinked. I was. And her mother's credit card debt? Yes. And the business account tied to Brooke's startup? I laughed once, short and humorless. Let me guess. They're all late. They're all calling, he corrected. And they're all assuming you'll fix it. That's when I understood something important. They hadn't just lost control of the narrative. They'd lost access. For years, I'd quietly propped up that family. Not because they deserved it, but because I thought love was something you proved by enduring disrespect. Rent payments disguised as help. Emergency transfers framed as temporary. Expenses absorbed so Lauren could look successful without ever acknowledging the foundation beneath her. I stopped all of it. Every automatic payment. Every shared account. Every safety net they didn't even know was there. I didn't announce it. I didn't threaten. I didn't explain. I let reality speak. Lauren was the first to feel it. She showed up at my condo that Friday night. Not angry. Not crying. Calm. That scared me more than yelling ever could. I just want to talk, she said through the door. I didn't open it. There's nothing to talk about, I replied. You can't do this, she said, voice tightening. You can't just erase me. I didn't erase you, I said evenly. You erased me. I just stopped pretending otherwise. Her voice cracked. Everyone's acting like I'm some villain. I leaned my forehead against the door. You laughed while I was being thrown out of your family's house. That wasn't. Don't, I interrupted. Don't rewrite it. Silence. Then something colder. You think people are on your side now, she said. But this will pass. It always does. And when it does, you'll be alone. I opened the door then. Not all the way. Just enough for her to see my face. I was alone with you, I said. This is an upgrade. She stared at me like she'd never seen me before. And maybe she hadn't. She left without another word. The next morning, Brooke tried a different tactic. She sent me a long email. Apologetic. Reflective. Carefully worded. She admitted she'd gone along with jokes. That she'd misread the room. That she never intended to hurt me. Then she asked if I could float her a little money until things settled down. I didn't reply. Ryan messaged me 2 days later. I didn't know what they were doing to you, he wrote. I swear. But I'm paying the price now. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back. You sat in my seat and laughed. No response. Maya came over that Sunday. She brought takeout and a bottle of cheap wine and didn't ask how I was doing. She just handed me a plate and sat beside me like it was the most natural thing in the world. They're spiraling, she said between bites. Your mother-in-law is telling everyone you manipulated the situation. Brooks blaming Lauren. Lauren's blaming you. Nobody's taking responsibility. I smiled faintly. Of course not. Maya studied me. And you? I'm tired, I admitted. But I'm clear. She nodded. That's dangerous for people who relied on you being confused. That week, more messages came in. Some angry. Some desperate. Some pretending nothing happened. One aunt sent a paragraph about forgiveness and family unity. I replied with a single line, unity requires honesty. Another cousin accused me of airing private matters publicly. I responded, what you call private, I call concealed. Then something unexpected happened. People started reaching out to me. Not to argue. To confess. A cousin told me she'd been mocked for years behind her back. A family friend admitted she'd stopped coming to gatherings because the environment felt toxic. Someone I barely knew said the recordings forced them to reevaluate their own silence in their family. I hadn't meant to start a movement. I just stopped lying. Lauren tried one last time. She sent me divorce papers, unsigned, with a note attached. This doesn't have to be ugly. I laughed out loud. This was her idea of ugly? I signed. Not out of spite. Out of relief. By the end of January, the family had fractured into factions. There were the loyalists, those who insisted nothing was wrong and blamed me for stirring drama. And then there were the others. The quiet ones. The ones who left that night. They started hosting their own dinners. Small gatherings. No performances. No hierarchy. No pretending. I was invited. For the first time in years, I felt wanted without being useful. One night, sitting on Maya's balcony, city lights flickering below us, she asked me something that stuck. Do you miss them? I thought about it. About the laughter that wasn't really laughter. The love that came with conditions. The constant shrinking. No, I said honestly. I miss who I thought they could be. She smiled sadly. That's the hardest loss. As February rolled in, I realized something else. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger had burned off, leaving something cleaner behind. Acceptance. They showed me exactly who they were. And for once, I believed them. By February, the dust had settled enough for patterns to emerge. That's when I saw it clearly. The people who were the loudest about family unity were the same ones who benefited most from keeping things exactly the way they were. The ones who lost nothing were the ones demanding forgiveness. The ones who'd lost access, to money, to control, to a convenient scapegoat, were suddenly very concerned about reconciliation. Lauren's side of the family started holding smaller gatherings again. Carefully curated. No photos posted publicly. No tags. No traceable evidence of who was there. It was like watching a company go into crisis mode after a scandal, close ranks, limit exposure, pretend the whistleblower was the real problem. I stayed out of it. I focused on rebuilding the parts of my life I'd neglected while trying to earn approval that was never coming. I took on more work. Not because I needed the money, I was fine, but because work had always been the one place where effort equaled results. No mind games. No shifting goalposts. Just do the job, get paid, move on. I started therapy, too. That part surprised people when they found out. You don't seem broken, one friend said. That's exactly why I'm going, I told him. I don't want to rebuild myself around damage I didn't choose. In one session, my therapist asked a question that stopped me cold. When was the first time you remember feeling like an outsider in your own family? The answer came immediately. I was 12. Lauren's family had invited me on a weekend trip. This was before we were married, before I knew what patterns looked like when they hardened into identity. At dinner, someone joked about how quiet I was, how I didn't really count because I wasn't blood yet. Everyone laughed. Lauren squeezed my hand under the table, but she didn't say anything. I told myself that was enough. It wasn't. That silence, that moment, was the blueprint for everything that came later. Once I saw that, a lot of guilt evaporated. Guilt only survives when you believe you owed people more than they ever gave you. By March, the legal side of the divorce was moving quickly. Lauren didn't contest much. I think she realized fighting me publicly would only reopen conversations she desperately wanted buried. We divided assets cleanly. No drama. No theatrics. The real fallout wasn't legal. It was social. Some people stopped talking to me entirely. They didn't announce it. They just disappeared. I let them go. Others came back quietly, awkwardly, unsure how to bridge the gap. One message stood out. It was from Lauren's aunt, the one who'd always brought dessert, the one who left early that New Year's night. I should have spoken up years ago, she wrote. I didn't because it was easier to laugh along. I'm sorry. I stared at the message for a long time before replying. Thank you for saying that, I wrote back. That matters more than you think. We started meeting for coffee once a month. Just conversation. No gossip. No rehashing. It felt adult. Healthy. Rare. Meanwhile, Lauren spiraled. Not publicly, she was too careful for that, but enough that word reached me anyway. She lost friends. Not dramatically. Just gradually. People stopped returning calls. Stopped inviting her places. Stopped defending her when my name came up. Brooke moved back in with her parents. Ryan disappeared completely. Lauren tried to rebrand herself online. New photos. New captions. Inspirational quotes about growth and healing. None of them mentioned accountability. That's when I knew she hadn't learned anything. In April, my father-in-law called again. I don't expect forgiveness, he said. I just want to understand something. Go ahead. Why didn't you fight back earlier? I thought about it. Because I was taught that love meant endurance, I said. And I didn't realize how wrong that was until I stopped enduring. He was quiet for a long time. I failed you, he said finally. Yes, I replied gently. But you're not failing me now by admitting it. That conversation didn't fix anything. But it closed a door cleanly. By early summer, my life looked completely different. New routines. New people. New energy. I laughed more. Slept better. Ate without knots in my stomach. And something else changed, too. My voice. I stopped hedging. Stopped softening truths to make them easier for others to swallow. Stopped apologizing for boundaries. At a small gathering one night, someone asked about Lauren. I didn't tense up. We weren't compatible, I said simply. I needed respect. She needed control. No one argued. Because no one who mattered disagreed. The final confrontation came unexpectedly. It was at a grocery store, of all places. I was in the produce aisle, debating apples, when I heard my name. Lauren stood a few feet away, cart half full, eyes sharp. You look fine, she said. I am. She scoffed. Must be nice. Turning everyone against me. I met her gaze calmly. People turned themselves. That's not fair. Neither was shutting the door in my face and laughing, I replied. She flushed. You always bring that up. Because it was the moment everything became clear. She hesitated. For a second, just a second, I thought she might actually say it. I'm sorry. She didn't. Instead, she said, you didn't have to humiliate me. I leaned closer, lowering my voice. I didn't humiliate you. I stopped hiding the truth. The difference matters. She stared at me like she wanted to say more, then turned and walked away. I watched her go with something close to indifference. That surprised me. I thought closure would feel dramatic. It didn't. It felt quiet. Uneventful. Like setting down a weight you'd forgotten you were carrying. That night, I sat alone on my balcony, city humming below, and reflected on something Maya once said. Some families don't break when the truth comes out, she'd told me. They break because they were already broken, and the truth just stops holding them together. I finally understood that. I didn't destroy a family. I stopped pretending one existed. By the time summer faded into fall, I realized something quietly profound had happened. I was no longer measuring my life by who approved of me. For years, every decision I made, where I showed up, what I said, what I swallowed, had been filtered through one question I didn't even know I was asking. Will this finally make them accept me? Once that question disappeared, so did a huge part of my anxiety. Life slowed down in the best way. Mornings became mine. I'd wake up early, make coffee, sit by the window, and plan my day without bracing myself for anyone else's expectations. Work expanded naturally. Not explosively, not dramatically, just steadily, the way things do when they're built on honesty instead of performance. Maya remained my constant. We weren't trauma-bonded. We didn't sit around dissecting the past. We talked about books, stupid internet videos, plans for the future. Sometimes we laughed about how absurd it all had been, but mostly, we let it stay where it belonged, behind us. One night, sitting across from her at a small restaurant, she asked, "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you just stayed quiet?" I didn't even have to think about it. I'd still be shrinking, I said. And they'd still be comfortable. She smiled. Then I'm glad you didn't. So was I. Not everyone came around. That was a lesson I had to accept without bitterness. Some relatives doubled down. They clung to the version of events where I was unstable, dramatic, or vindictive. That narrative protected them from having to ask uncomfortable questions about their own behavior. I let them keep it. You can't heal people who don't want the truth. But others changed in ways I didn't expect. One cousin sent me a message saying my video made her start recording interactions with her own parents, not to expose them, but to remind herself she wasn't imagining things. Another told me he'd finally gone no contact with a sibling who'd been emotionally abusing him for years. Those messages mattered more than apologies. They meant something shifted. Around October, I found myself cleaning out old boxes from the back of my closet. Things I'd shoved away during the marriage. Old notebooks. Sketches. Half-written ideas. Pieces of myself I'd abandoned because they didn't fit the role I was trying to play. I spent an entire weekend sorting through them. Not with sadness. With curiosity. Who had I been before I learned to stay quiet? That question led me somewhere unexpected. I started writing again, not venting, not journaling, but telling stories. Fiction at first. Then pieces that blurred into truth. Nothing about my family directly. Just themes I knew well: silence, control, belonging, the moment someone realizes they're allowed to leave. I posted one short piece online under a pseudonym. It resonated. So I posted another. And another. People responded in ways that felt eerily familiar. This feels like my family. I didn't know how to put this into words until now. Thank you for saying what I've been afraid to say. I didn't chase it. I didn't monetize it. I just let it exist. For the first time, something I created wasn't being judged by people who needed me small. By November, the anniversary of that New Year's night approached. I didn't dread it. That surprised me, too. Maya hosted a small gathering, nothing fancy. Just food, music, people who showed up because they wanted to be there, not because tradition demanded it. At some point in the evening, someone asked how we all met. When the conversation drifted toward families, someone casually asked me, "Do you still talk to yours?" I took a sip of my drink. "Some of them," I said. "The ones who learned how." No one pressed further. That respect meant everything. Later that night, as people filtered out and Maya started cleaning up, she paused and looked at me. "You know," she said, "they thought shutting the door would make you disappear." I smiled. Instead, it showed me where the exits were. She laughed softly. "You didn't just walk away. You walked forward." That stayed with me. In December, Lauren sent one final message. Not angry. Not defensive. Just short. "I hope you're doing well." I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied. "I am. I hope you figure out why this happened." No accusation. No reopening. Just truth. She didn't respond. And I didn't need her to. New Year's Eve came again. This time, there was no door slammed in my face. No laughter behind my back. No seat taken from me while I stood outside pretending not to feel it. I stood on a rooftop with friends, watching fireworks bloom across the city. Someone handed me a drink. Someone else leaned against my shoulder. The countdown echoed around us. 10, 9, 8. As the numbers fell, I felt something settle deep in my chest, not triumph, not revenge, not vindication. Freedom. When the clock hit midnight, people cheered. Glasses clinked. Someone hugged me. And in that moment, I understood something I wish I'd known years earlier. Being told, "You're not family," doesn't always mean you've lost something. Sometimes it means you've finally been released. Released from roles you never chose. Released from expectations designed to keep you quiet. Released from the lie that love requires endurance. I didn't lose a family that night. I shed one that was already shedding me. And in the quiet that followed, the real quiet, not the tense kind, I found my voice again. Clear. Steady. Unapologetic. Before I end this, do me one small favor. If this story connected with you in any way, let me know by supporting the channel and sharing where you're watching from. It helps these stories reach people who might still be standing outside a door, wondering if they're allowed to walk away. You are. And sometimes, walking out is the bravest beginning you'll ever choose.